As a person, I think they would be the older big brother or sister that a lot of the times people will look up to our school, but they'll also see us as sometimes, I don't know, given our reputation, sometimes a bully.
Very outgoing.
Be really big.
Wild.
Smart.
That person is blonde, blue-eyed, you know, long flowy hair, Ugg boots, TNA bag, Canada Goose jacket, fairly well off.
Fun, social, outgoing, smart.
Upper middle class, older person, probably. Maybe a little conservative.
This person would be rich and would probably wear a Canada Goose jacket.
And Ugg boots. Don't forget the Ugg boots.
It would be from Thornhill, and they'd be uppity. They'd wear Uggs. They would just be what you see at Western, white, typical white, waspy person.
Probably more fashionable. Definitely comes from money. Maybe.
Yeah, opinionated. They definitely would contribute to the classroom. Probably white would be the majority of people.
Strong personalities.
Yeah.
High class, you know, upper class individuals. So I'd say if it was a person, it definitely would not be someone of a lower class. But I also think it'd be someone, you know, who has ideas for making a world better for other people. And I think it's also, you know, it'd also be a Western person would also be someone who would be very proud to be who they are.
I think it'd be a bit of a preppy person, probably a fairly high income bracket, drive a nice car, you know, that kind of thing.
White.
I feel like it's pretty diverse.
I'd say they'd be like a mixed race, like probably like 3/4 like traditional Canadian and maybe a quarter something else mixed in, European.
Old, white, with potentially a few adopted grandchildren from around the world.
White. Definitely.
Blonde hair, blue-eyed girl. 5'9", beautiful blonde girl.
Mostly white, maybe have like an Asian grandparent or something like that.
Probably be white.
Mix of everything.
Yeah, it would definitely be mixed. No race or just mixed.
You think Anglo-Saxon male just because it's a very old school and historically that's what it's been seen as. But for myself, I don't really know. I think that or mainland Chinese.
Okay. Canadian cultural mosaic, yes.
I'd say more of the mosaic because I feel there's, I mean, you see, you know, different clubs, you know, around campus that represent different ethnicities or different races or different religions.
Oh no, it's definitely the Canadian culture. I can say that for a fact because I'm part of a cultural group called Wolf, and it's a Filipino club. But to tell you the truth, I mean, we have Koreans, we have Canadians, we have Americans, we have some Spanish people in the group. So
Okay.
yeah, I would definitely have to say it's mixed.
I'm in the club too, and I'm from one Viet, so I can vouch for that.
I think it attempts to represent all cultures of the university, and I think it does have a fairly good idea of how to do that. I think there are certain things that are embedded in Canadian culture that ultimately cause it to become a melting pot. So just certain aspects, but I think for the most part, by allowing people to have groups and to celebrate who they are and identity, that kind of steers away from the melting pot.
I'd say, I guess, it's hard to tell. More of a cultural mosaic, because those are sort of buzzwords, but yeah, cultural mosaic, sure. there's not really an attempt to, I guess, assimilate so much that I've seen.
Definitely a melting pot. I think people accept different cultures. You can definitely see different groups or whatnot that people take part in around the school, but definitely more of an assimilated culture.
It's very hard to define because I think in Canada, a lot of people like to behave like they're tolerant or to behave like they're accepting because they know that doing otherwise is just socially frowned upon. So I've always questioned their true motives, and in doing that, have kind of come to the conclusion that we're closer to a melting pot than we would like to be.
I think the student body itself represents, I guess, what you could call a cultural mosaic. I mean, based on the diversity that is there, but I guess the overall understanding or outward promotion of said diversity, it kind of comes at a little more of a melting pot.
Within our campus, I think it is, but I think externally that's not something that will promote Western as. We won't say, come to Western, we're accepting of diversity. We'll say, look at our sports teams, look at our academics, and I think that's an important element to promote. But within the campus itself, I think we do promote that.
I'm not sure, because I don't pay attention to sports at all. So.
Definitely not.
I think it's promoted. I think there was an effort there, but I just don't think the word's out there as much. I don't think it's as effectively represented. I mean, you see stuff in the UCC like almost like every week. You know, some club is coming in and talking about, you know, what their club represents or this or that. But I mean, if you hear about the homecoming football game, everyone knows about that. You know what I mean? I think it's an issue of possibly of it being marketed more properly.
Absolutely not.
You?
Definitely not. No, it's like we said. Like you can literally see replications of people on campus, and
I'd probably say sports is promoted more on campus compared to some other schools, for sure. I think so.
I mean, it's hard to say because I don't really know what you mean by like promoting multiculturalism. Like we have a lot of student clubs and they all do their own thing, which is really awesome. But I don't know how the university can really promote multiculturalism.
What's important to the university is, first of all, the university's own stuff, so sports and how the university's bottom line works, I mean, money and all this kind of stuff. I think multiculturalism is sort of something that's nice, but it's not essential to the way the university runs.
No, not at all. Multiculturalism is promoted within whatever club you join. Say if you join the CSO or the BSA or whatever, like a cultural club that you join, then you promote your own culture. But as far as unity, no, not at all.
Yeah, I joined the African Students Association in first year, went to a few events, and I am also part of SURLA, the Students United in Representation of Latin America, and participated in Backpack Latin America. There are various cultural arts festivals.
I used to be a peer guide with the center over here, and I did participate in cultural clubs. So 1 year as a part of the Portuguese club, and 1 year as part of SURLA.
Yes, CSO, BSA.
I was part of the First Nation Student Association.
Yeah, I went to the SURLA Speaker Series, and it was fantastic.
And I'm a VP on Students for Building Health in Rwanda, so we do a lot of collabs with other more multicultural clubs and that kind of thing.
No, I haven't.
No, but I have heard of them.
I haven't participated. I wouldn't know of any.
Personally, I haven't. I've been involved in some political associations, but nothing other than that.
I have not.
No, not deliberately. I mean, you hear jokes here and there, right? And everyone kind of has a sense of humor, but I've never really seen any deliberate acts of violence or any type of racism.
I've only been here for 2 years. No.
Not on campus, to be honest. I have heard of some, you hear stuff downtown, Richmond Row, people are drunk, but on campus, for the large part, nothing really.
Probably, yeah. I have. So I should tell it? I don't want to tell
you wanna
it,
tell
but
it?
I have. I mean,
You can tell it if you like. You don't have to.
no.
Yes, definitely. It was actually not something you'd usually think of when you think of racism, but I've seen a lot of sort of prejudice against Arab students on this campus, especially when they try to promote their own multiculturalism and their culture. They get a lot of backlash, a lot of comparisons with terrorists and so forth, which I find pretty disgusting.
It was at a soft pub. I remember it being there. This is the most vivid memory in my mind. I mean, there's always kind of inherent little things going on here and there that you're like, ooh, like that was not good. But this particular act, I mean, I'm sure alcohol was involved, but it involved one person calling another person a name, and then that person sort of reacting violently and the other person reacting violently backward. I mean, it was an all-out fight. So.
Have I? Yes, most definitely.
Could you give an example?
A personal one to me?
Any.
Well, this was my first experience when I came to Western. I was walking across Mad Seat, and it's this bunch of, it was like these white guys in like a pickup truck. It was like right out of the movie. It's like hick, you know, like redneck white people. And then they're like, nigger, out the window. So, you know, I picked up a rock to throw it at the truck. But they were in a car, so they went fast. But that's the first time I'd ever been called a nigger. And I was, what, 19, 18? And that was my first week at Western. So, yeah, I've experienced racism here. And, like, yeah, most definitely.
Would you like to give us an example or comment on it?
Well, for the most part, to talk about racism towards Native people, it takes a lot of history to understand the complexity of it, because Native people don't experience racism on the same level as other ethnicities do, minorities. I think for the most part because the Canadian mainstream society has had the mandate of assimilating Native people in the past and not educating non-Native mainstream Canadians about the history of violence, the genocide policies, residential schools, and trying to keep that quiet. So for the most part, non-Native people are very ignorant when it comes to knowing about the issues that affect Native people. And for the most part, people call them First Nations issues, which isn't entirely true, because historically these issues never existed here in North America, right? So these are more issues imposed on First Nations people. So an example, I don't know how far this is going to go, because it took place in the classroom, and it was it might not seem like racism towards somebody who doesn't know the history or the context, because we're talking about social determinants of health, and Native status was brought up in isolation as a determinant of health. And if you're to understand the reasons why First Nation status is a determinant of health, then that's okay. But for the most part, the average Canadian doesn't know about the genocidal policies that have taken place to have put Native people in such a detrimental state of health. So by naming it as an isolated determinant of health doesn't contextualize it in a sense where people can understand the violent history that took place in order to bring us to that point.